How good is 2020 Honda 250RX? Hey, what's up guys, Rado here with Dirt and Iron. Well, today we got this 2020 Honda 250RX off-road race machine enduro weapon, and you guys probably remember that last year I had 2019, same bike 2019. It was the first year when Honda came out with this bike last year, and it was a good bike. I had a good time on it. I gave you my honest review, and one thing I didn't like that much on the last year model was the power. There wasn't a lot of power on the bottom and the mid-range. It built a lot of power in a high RPM. It was definitely a rever. Once you keep it on the red line, it was really a screamer last year. So for this year, for 2020, this bike comes with a lot of upgrades to the engine and also to the frame, swing arm. So the handling should be better, and the power, what Honda is saying, you can check that on their website, is that there's a different piston, bigger valves, a different shape of a dome, of a head, and then it just feels better from the bottom, mid-range, and the top range, and it revs to the moon. So that's what we read on the website. So in this video we want to jump on the bike, take it to many different terrains, and test it and see how it really feels in the real life. It only has a gripper seat for moto seat and a hand guards. Everything else is pretty much out of a showroom floor. On a Hondas you need to go on a clutch if you want to start it. It's a little safety here. Bike is not far from 250R, from the motocross bike. It did feel pretty good on the track. I was taking all the jumps, I was doing everything I normally do on a straight motocross bike, and it felt good. One thing I would say is that the suspension was not really dialed in for the motocross riding. If I took a bigger jump and my landing wasn't ideal, I could feel that it is a little bit softer. And as I also mentioned, I'm a little bit bigger guy these days. I'm like 200 pounds, so that's not probably how this bike was prepped, from the showroom floor. Very slow technical riding, first gear, seeing how much this bike stalls, how it rides in the low RPM, how it handles in the low RPM, how it handles in the slow speed. I have to be honest with you guys, I was surprised. I was expecting this bike to be stalling way more than it did. It can crawl. Look, first gear, kind of idle speed, no clutch. The bike goes. Let's hit these rocks. Whoop, yeah. So this is pretty steep. I underestimated it and didn't give it enough gas, so I did stall it right on the top, but not too bad actually. Alright, so let's try to stay in the first gear and just crawl through this trail. And I am feathering clutch when I have to, but I'll try to push it, see when it stalls. So right now no clutch. Still no clutch. That's pretty good. First gear, a little bit feathering. The stalling issue, I think it's way smaller. I remember being here on stack 450s, and I stalled like 3-4 times. Trying to push it, of course, but yeah, I did stall. And this bike keeps going. The smaller displacement engine tends to be a little more forgiving. faster roads, riding in a 4th gear pin or 3rd gear, 4th gear, 5th gear, faster road, connecting trails, and really, open trails, felt amazing. This bike sounds so good. When you get it in a high RPM, it pulls really great and it just sounds so good. It is asking for more. It really revs to the moon. I was enjoying it so much. Like sometimes I was a little bit on the edge when I was taking those turns, and it spins rear tire in those turns. Guys, this bike feels incredible here. Man, the suspension is so nice. It's not too plush, but I can feel I can really push it here, and it's eating these little bumps on the road. So if you have a faster trail like this one, this is a fire road with some bumps. If you have something like that, man, this bike feels really good, and it loves to be in a high RPM. It starts singing when you have that high RPM. But even from the bottom, it pulls pretty good. Wow, it's so nice, man. It's a rever, but it's different than last year. I could feel that the power is building so much better than before. There is a lot of power on the bottom. It's really noticeable compared to 2019. I remember how 2019 was, but this year is really much better. The bottom and the mid. I did this little test where I was low RPM going through all the gears, and then I pinned the 5th gear, and I didn't really feel much bogging there. So let me show you. I'm gonna go through all the gears without getting into high RPM. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it keeps pulling. So really much better bottom than previous year model. Now a little bit technical uphill sections with a lot of loose rocks. I was trying to also hit those sections, do a little hill climbs, I guess you can call it that. And I was in the 1st gear, 2nd gear, low RPM, going a little bit on the high RPM, and really trying to see how this bike feels. I was comparing it to my older KTM 300 that I usually ride on those trails, so I know where my torque is and where my power is, but felt pretty good. It didn't feel as a 300 two-stroke, that's for sure, but it felt pretty good. Power was there. It pulled me up those hills, even when I lost the balance, and I kind of had to tap my foot because I hit some rock. It felt good. I could always recover, and I made all those hills. So I was surprised. It felt pretty good. Okay, I did everything without a clutch. Now the place where this bike feels the best is definitely a faster flowy trail with some jumps, some rocks, some roots, some whoops, all those things. You throw it on a bike and it feels really good. I cannot tell you how much I enjoy this stock suspension on the trails. Woohoo! That was fun! Flowy trails, these bikes love it. Oh, this thing feels really good here. This is a really fun downhill. It has some section where it flows and has some jumps, and then it comes something like this, a bunch of loose rocks. kind of steep, so I'm always enjoying this downhill. Woohoo! And it's getting more and more gnarly because of the water and rain and people riding it all the time. So it's also getting more fun. Sometimes even a little bit too much fun. I love to slide my rear brakes into the turns. This is a good trail to practice that. So when I'm hitting clutch very often, like now when I try to slide my rear, it would be nice to have hydraulic clutch. I don't know, maybe a little bit later Honda would follow. This suspension is so good here. I mentioned that on the motocross track it might be a little bit on the soft side, but here on the trails it was eating everything. Every single bump I had, the rack, and it, you know, when I was a little bit faster on those connecting trails, it wasn't even if I was in a turn and I hit some funny rack or root or you know, some kind of hole, it wasn't deflecting in a funny way. Like sometimes on other bikes, I would already see myself being in this sketchy situation, but this bike just ate it. I didn't get this, you know, funny hit when I was a little bit in a different angle riding in the turns. So suspension on this bike stack, the way it comes from the showroom floor, it's amazing. Okay, so if I should sum it up, this bike for 2020 actually surprised me. The changes that Honda did are noticeable and did a big increase in the power delivery, the way the bike handles, and the suspension. Put these three things together, I loved it. Really, riding four-stroke on the trails is not what I usually do, but today riding this bike on the trails that I usually ride, I did have a lot of fun, and it inspired confidence in me. I was a little bit faster, I could hit it with more confidence, I could hit it a little bit faster, and it just all over felt really good. So it's a really good package. This 250 engine, it has power. It really pulls much better from the bottom, and then when you get it into those higher RPMs, it sings and it pulls and revs to the moon. Really felt good. If you guys are shopping for a new bike and you want something that can do it all, but you stay on the trails most of the time, or if you are thinking to buy 250R but you are not always on the track, you sometimes want to take it on the trail, then maybe look at this bike. It's only $300 difference buying it brand new. You can get better deal maybe a little bit later in the year, but it's only $300 difference between R and RX. But this bike can do more than R. It does feel better. I think if you take R on the trail, you will feel that something is missing over there. So this bike gives you best from both worlds. And if you are a Honda guy, man, this is a bike for you. It really inspires confidence. It feels good pretty much everywhere. I did not find a terrain where I felt that this bike was not really meant for. Last year for 2019, I had a couple terrains that I didn't feel 100%. But now in this upgraded 2020 model, I think they did way better than before, and it does feel better. So I don't really have a terrain that I can tell you, don't take it there, you will suffer a lot. It really felt pretty good everywhere. And well, it felt pretty good on some of those places, and it felt really good on majority of these different terrains where I went today. So I'm impressed. For 2020, 250RX does feel better. It's a better bike than the previous model year, and I can imagine myself riding one of these bikes on the trails. Alright, my friends, hopefully you enjoyed this review. Let me know below in the comments if you ride 250RX or 250R, and share your opinion. Let us know what you think, and don't forget, whatever you do, stay motivated. See you guys later.